There's a quiet power in choosing not to explain yourself and letting people misunderstand you and still choosing peace. Because the truth is, no matter where you go, whether it's a boardroom, a brunch table, or a reality TV villa, someone will always demand an explanation. And even when you do give one, they will twist it, they'll shrink it, and they'll pretend not to understand. But we're no longer playing those games. We're no longer performing softness just to be seen as worthy. We're no longer contorting ourselves to fit someone else's comfort. And what really got me thinking about this was Shelley from Love Island Season 7, because during the show's airing and even post-Villa, Shelley was catching strays left and right for no reason, for simply just existing and being true to herself. She exhibited exemplary behavior throughout the whole show. She was mature, she was grounded, she was emotionally literate, and she never called anyone out of their name. She never raised her voice, and she never played dirty. And yet, that same grace was never extended to her, because people read her boundaries as coldness, her composure as arrogance, and her silence as shady. But Shelley didn't come to the villa to perform. She came to be herself. And that choice, especially when you're a Black woman, is revolutionary to people, because we're taught to entertain, to express our emotions on command, to prove our softness before we're allowed to be seen as whole. And Shelley didn't do that. She chose presence over performance. Hello, my lovely it girls, and welcome back to the channel. So like I said, this video is going to be touching on Shelley and the things that I noticed from her journey on the Love Island season. So as we all know, reality TV is a machine built on perception, especially a show like Love Island, where we're constantly watching 1-hour edits of 24-hour days. And those hour-long episodes don't show the whole truth. They show the story the producers want us to see. They show the drama, the spectacle, and the archetypes. And when you're a Black woman in that machine, the stakes are completely different. You're not just being watched, you're being decoded. Every glance, every silence, every boundary becomes a Rorschach test for someone else's bias. And, we saw it with Alandria too. She was loyal, she was emotionally available, and deeply invested in her connection with Taylor. And they painted her out to look desperate and delusional for Taylor. And even I fell for it, because that is the edit that they gave her. And apparently Taylor was doing things for her and was saying all these things to her to make her believe that he was just as equally invested, but that's not what the producers wanted to show. They wanted to make Alandria to be out, make her out to be the fool, basically, and make her look desperate, oh, he doesn't like her, but she's still chasing after him. But apparently that was not how things actually went down at all. And I know I did a video about Alandria too, but that one is just based on the things that they did show us. And from those things and what I personally noticed, it could be completely off base, but just to, let's say those things were true, just to take some lessons. So anyways, in my opinion, I think Shelley was also very much so, even more so than Alandria, completely misunderstood. She walked into the villa with a quiet confidence. She came in a model, a day trader, a woman who knew herself. She didn't need to prove anything to anyone. But the moment that she didn't emote the way America wanted, the moment she didn't chase the drama or overshare her feelings, the misunderstanding began. People projected their discomfort with her boundaries onto her personality, and they questioned her intentions. But what they were really reacting to was her refusal to perform, her refusal to make herself legible to people who had already decided not to understand her. Because like I said, when you're a Black woman, silence is never neutral. It's read as being shady, as being arrogant, and as a threat. And that's the machine. It just doesn't edit your story, it edits your humanity. So we can start from the beginning and talking about Austin and her connection with him. So this guy she was paired up with for, I'd say, a solid quarter of the season until her and Ace finally got together. But from day one, they had chemistry, but it was like chemistry without clarity. Like it was just chaos waiting to happen. But Shelley gave him grace, she gave him space, and she didn't micromanage his emotions or demand constant reassurance, and she let him show up how he wanted to. And when his energy shifted, when the vibes got murky, she didn't beg for clarity and instead created it herself. So that moment where she calmly said to him, I'm not going to chase someone who's unsure about me, was a masterclass in emotional discipline. She didn't yell, she didn't spiral, and she didn't perform for the cameras. She chose herself, and I feel like that's where the backlash began. Online, people were calling her cold and dismissive and difficult because, when a girl like Shelley chooses herself, it's often read as a rejection of others, and it's as if self-respect is somehow an attack. But it was never about him. It was about what she knew was best for her. And let's be honest, at least from what we saw, Austin wasn't really doing too much to show that he wanted to her. Austin wasn't doing really much to show that he wanted her. He kept venting to the boys about being sick of the love triangle with him, Ace, and Shelley, but not once did he really step up to get out of that love triangle. Like, there was no decisive conversation, there was no clear gesture, just passive frustration. And side note, I personally don't think Austin ever liked Shelley like that. Like, I think he knew that she was too good for him. Like, of course, I think he was attracted to her. She's a very beautiful girl. That's not what I'm saying. But I think he knew that she was just way above him. But, he wanted to hold on to her just enough to stay in the game for someone more on his level to come in. And that eventually did happen. Because, Shelley wasn't just a connection to him. I think she was more of a shield and a storyline and a way for him to stay relevant. Because let's be honest, as soon as her and Ace paired up, like, Austin really didn't get that much screen time. So when she stopped playing along, his edit kind of shifted and suddenly she was the problem. But the truth is, she chose her own peace of mind and her wants over someone else, a stranger at that point. So then came Ace, and I'm not gonna lie, up until like the third to last episode or the fourth to last episode, whichever one that was, I really didn't trust him. He gave off game player energy, he just felt super calculated, and every move he made seemed designed to build a storyline instead of a genuine connection. It was almost as if he was playing producer on the show, which as a contestant you're really not supposed to do. Do I think he was genuinely and still is attracted to Shelley? Absolutely. Like I said, she's a gorgeous girl. That part was obvious and that's not an issue, but his choices, I feel like, didn't always reflect that. So if we go back to the first recoupling, Ace had the power to choose, and everyone, and even him, like everyone knew that he wanted Shelley. They had met before, in passing maybe. They had chemistry. They had this natural ease to their connection. But instead of choosing her, he picked Amaya, and it made no sense. And side note, also, I think Ace knew exactly what he was doing. He wanted to win all along, and he knew that America loves an arc, so he manufactured one. So by not choosing Shelley first, he built that tension. He created a will they, won't they storyline. He knew that if they overcame obstacles, their connection would feel more triumphant and more genuine, quote unquote. And it almost worked up until the finale, before the finale episode where they got voted off. Anyways, back to Shelley. She didn't rush her side of the connection with Ace. She didn't perform the chemistry. She instead let it build on her end. And even when Ace was moving sideways, flirting with Amaya and then Iris, then Coco, Shelley stayed grounded. She didn't chase. She didn't compete. She let him figure it out because she knew that if he really wanted her, then he would come to go get her. And he eventually did. And when they finally coupled up, it felt earned. Not because they had that history, but because Shelley had held her center the entire time. Their connection, I think towards the end, was something more intentional. And when they made it official, when they went to the hideaway, that definitely felt like a win. When he asked her to be exclusive and she said yes, I think that was like one of the most grounded and emotionally mature moments of the season. But America didn't vote them into the finale, despite their growth, despite, you know, their clarity towards the end, and despite how genuinely happy they seemed to be around each other. Because I feel like that kind of joy, like, it wasn't loud and it wasn't performative, and I think it kind of became invisible. So, you know, that's the quiet tragedy of reality TV. If you're not crying, if you're not screaming, or, you know, making out with someone at every scene, you are kind of forgettable. But Shelley wasn't forgettable. She was just subtle. And in a world that rewards spectacle, subtlety is, you know, it flies under the radar. So now what I really wanted to get to is the heart rate challenge and also the stand on business mailbox challenge. So if you watch the show, the heart rate challenge, especially, you know, I don't know why they did it in couples this year. I thought that was really weird, but, you know, it was Ace and Shelley's turn, and, you know, Shelley was doing her thing with Chris, and then Ace and Huda were also doing something. So that was the moment where Huda like crossed the line, and this was the moment where Shelley's composure was really tested, and then her boundaries were just completely misread. So Huda, like, basically, like, her performance on Ace was like really inappropriate. Like, she was grinding on him, like doing all this crazy stuff, like kissing him really intensely, like, and, you know, she did end up raising his heart rate more than anyone else. And, you know, I think her move was bold and it was very calculated, and it clearly left Shelley visibly shaken. But, you know, she didn't yell, she didn't spiral, she didn't make a scene. Instead, she named a boundary. She told Huda calmly, like, after that happened that night, you know, I'm too upset to talk. Can we talk tomorrow? Because, you know, I'm really upset right now and I don't want to say something I'm going to regret. And that's emotional maturity. That's self-regulation, and that's grace. And still, people said that she was overreacting, that she should have been more chill, more forgiving, more quote-unquote fun. It's just a challenge. It's just a challenge. But that other person would have not reacted that way. And then came the stand on business mailbox challenge, where they all wrote and read anonymous notes to each other, and some people, you know, said who the note was from. So this was the moment where Shelley really held Huda accountable. Again, she wasn't yelling, she didn't humiliate Huda, she simply stated the truth. You crossed the line, and I'm not going to pretend that you didn't. But online, Shelley was labeled a mean girl, a villain, and a hypocrite. And let's be honest, a lot of the backlash came from viewers who don't understand emotional boundaries, who don't understand what the meaning of friendship truly is, and who don't understand what it means to be disrespected and still choose to move in a dignified way. And let's be even more honest, a lot of the viewers this season were kids. They were young teenagers, people who haven't yet learned that holding someone accountable isn't a mean thing to do, and that having boundaries isn't aggressive. So Shelley's response was very measured, it was grounded, and yet it was still misunderstood, because Black women are expected to absorb disrespect gracefully, to be unbothered but never assertive, to be strong but never confrontational. But Shelley handled that situation as best as she could have. She didn't retaliate, she didn't isolate, and she didn't perform any pain for sympathy. She simply said, "This hurt me, and I'm letting you know so you can take accountability." And that's what emotional clarity looks like. That's what soft power looks like. That's what being an it girl actually looks like. So after the show was over, after the show ended, Shelley posted a message to her social media saying, "You're only seeing a glimpse, maybe 10 minutes out of my 24-hour day in Fiji." She reminded everyone that reality TV isn't reality, it's a highlight reel. And in most cases, it's a low light reel curated by these producers and editors to craft a specific narrative. And if you guys haven't watched the show Unreal, it's on Netflix, I believe, but it It's an amazing show. I highly recommend it. It's a fictional drama based on real behind the scenes tactics used in dating shows by producers and editors. These producers manipulate the contestants, they pit them against one another, they manufacture conflict a lot of the time, and they decide who gets to be the hero, the victim, or the villain. And Shelley didn't get the hero edit. She didn't get the victim edit. She got the aggressor edit, the cold girl, the mean girl. And let's be honest, reality TV rarely allows a Black woman to be seen as soft, as complex, or emotionally layered. That role is preserved for a certain demographic of women, the ones who cry every episode and whose tears are actually shown, the ones whose tears are framed as vulnerability and not manipulation. Apparently, Shelley said that she cried way more in the villa than what was shown, but those moments didn't make the edit because the producers did not want us to see her humanity. They wanted a storyline, they wanted tension, they wanted conflict. They wanted a Black woman who could be misunderstood and then blamed for it. And yet, Shelley never apologized. She didn't explain her boundaries and she didn't beg for redemption. She said, at the end of the day, I won. I have my man, I have my circle, I have my peace. And she chose grace, she chose clarity, she chose herself. And that's what reclaiming your narrative looks like. It's not rewriting the story, but refusing to let someone else finish it for you. So I would say use Shelley's journey in the villa as a reminder that as a Black woman, we don't owe anyone likability. We don't owe anyone constant explanation, and we don't owe anyone our softness on demand, because those committed to misunderstanding us, they'll do it no matter how gently we speak, no matter how much context we provide, no matter how many times we cry behind closed doors. So instead of performing for clarity, choose your peace. Choose what's going to be in your best interest always. Because trust me, other people, other women are always doing the same. And never let anyone guilt trip you for choosing to be selfish. It is your birthright to protect your energy, to honor your boundaries, and to walk away without explaining why. Alright, it girls, that's it for this video. Stay soft, stay sovereign, and we'll talk again soon.